Snikes. Okay, so I'm Allison Snikes. I'm on staff at Princeton Learning Cooperative. And also here tonight is Joel Hammond, who's just talking, who's on staff, and Katie Burke. Princeton Learning Cooperative has been supporting young people, and their families, but the young people that take control of their life and education for 11 years. And we've really seen firsthand how a flexible, interest-based education in a welcoming community can be life-changing for a young person. All of the members at PLC are considered homeschoolers, and that is the legal mechanism to allow young people and their families to personalize educational choices for the particular individual. And combining that with PLC, offers the opportunities because we have classes, we have a community of teens, and something that people really value, one-on-one mentoring. You hear often from the kids and the families how much they value the time that the staff. So each of the staff works with about a third of the kids one-on-one each week. And we host a panel of teens and young adults twice a year to share their non-conventional educational paths, to highlight both self-directing one's education during the middle and high school years, and then some of the pathways post-high school. We have a really wonderful panel tonight. And this is just such a super highlight for me, as these are young people that I've worked with over the years, and it's wonderful to hear their thoughts and reflections on their journey and their goals and aspirations for the future. So thank you all for making the time to share your stories with us tonight. After each panelist tells their story, after all of them go, we'll open it up to questions and answers. But feel free to post your questions in the chat as we go. Katie's going to be monitoring the chat. Anything you want to add to that, Katie?
No, just I guess if you want to direct something to a particular person, indicate that would be helpful.
All right. And then Joel, do you want to say anything about follow-up and collecting people's contact info? And
yeah, sure. So if anyone's interested in learning more about Princeton Learning Cooperative, the other learning cooperatives, I'll put a little note in the chat so you can just send me a private message with your email address, and I'll make sure you get on the mailing list and follow up with you as well after the event.
Yeah, so good. And we're going to be sending a follow-up email to everybody that we have email addresses for. So if you came through MailChimp, we already have your email address, but if you'd like to share with that respect, we'll send out the recording from tonight so that, if you have other people that you think would be interested to watch it, you could share it with them. All right, so we had also, I'll just say we have one other panelist. So we have three here with us tonight, and I'll introduce them here in a second. We have a fourth, and her power went out. We have a thunderstorm coming through the New Jersey area this evening, and so her power went out and she got in touch with me. I told her to just join whenever. That will, when she, if she's able to join, we'll just catch her up and, fit her in somehow. So that's Gabby, if Gabby comes in. But here tonight we have Jillian, Constantine, and Cameron. And so I'll introduce each and have them tell their story. So Jillian, if you would like to go first. Jillian is a current member at PLC.
Okay, I'm Jillian. I'm 16 today. So
happy birthday.
I joined PLC in March of 2020, like a week before everything was shut down for COVID. But before that, I was in Westminster Plainsboro Public School. And my main issue with that was just, I found it really stressful. It made everything about school made me really anxious. Just work and grades that I just didn't think were helping me learn. So I just didn't enjoy it at all. So after switching in the spring, I took a break from a lot of the classes I was taking in public school, just to focus on myself and what I wanted to be learning about and everything. So I started really small, just with what I was comfortable with, getting to know the mentors through talking about things I liked and just listening into classes. So one of the first projects I worked on was raising a flock of chickens. So those were my first real pets. I still have them. And they're great. But so I did a lot of research into how to care for them and breeds and coops and whatever. And I worked on that as a first project in my mentoring meetings. And so that also was just a lot of my free time was used caring for them at first. They're a year old now, still have them, and they're still a topic of conversation I like to bring up all the time in animal behavior and other things whenever I can. But so yeah, so then this school year I started getting into more classes and things I was interested in and research and whatever. What I like about it is just that I can take whatever interest I have and work it into classes and projects and volunteer with a presentation, which I've done on things from animal to communication to like how to dye my hair, and just fun things like that. And so, I mean, last year I started in online classes with like my mic and camera off, and once I got comfortable with it, I was participating and presenting and doing stuff like this, I guess. But yeah, so it's just like you can take things at whatever pace you're comfortable with and choose what you want to spend time learning and stuff, which is great. I'm so much more excited about work I like choose to get done rather than like the stress of just doing it to get a grade. Some things I worked on this year were weeding and planting vegetables and flowers in garden beds at school and in my house. We named the plants, we go out to water them, take photos of them. Yeah. So that's a fun project. I started doing math in a one-on-one session with a volunteer, which most people do, I think. So you can just go, I go at whatever pace works for me. I started by just doing an hour once a week this year, and then I'm gonna go probably twice or more next year to get through it a little faster. But I wanted to start slow until I was comfortable because it was a lot of stress at first. So yeah, we walk out into the trails in nature class each week, look at the woodpecker's nest, animal tracks, the growing tadpoles, which it's raining now, so they won't dry out, and a lot of plants. I took psychology, baking, current events, animal behavior, and other classes. And then next year, I'm planning to go into a lot of the regular set of classes you would, math, science, history, and English and Spanish, but just in a setting and amount that I find more interesting and less stressful than I did. And yeah, right now I'm working on getting together summer plans, whether that's trying to find a job or volunteer or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Thank you, Jillian. That was really excellent. Thank you very much. That was terrific. I saw Gabby joined. Are you out there, Gabby?
Hi.
Hello. So Gabby was able to join us. So I introduced you a little bit before, but thank you for being here. So if you want to go next and talk about your story, thank you.
Sure, that sounds great. Hi, my name is Gabby. Like Allison said, I've been going to PLC. I think this is my third year now, just about. And I've really loved the program and everything that I've done with it. The reason why I picked PLC was because I was coming up into my high school years, and I've been homeschooled for all my life, by the way. But it was almost my freshman year, and me and my mom were talking about like what learning paths could we do, because what we were doing before, it was good, but we were looking for something new. So I had three options. It was PLC, a private school near my house at the time, and public school. So we decided, let's take a chance on PLC. I did my first visiting day, and everybody there was super welcoming, really nice. I had a couple girls like show me around the classes, showed me what they like to do my first time there, and it was just a great community. So I think I joined that very same year, actually, September of that year or October, and it's been great ever since. I've got to study and learn so many new things, and I've been given so many great opportunities by it. I was able to try out psychology, something that without PLC, I would have never gotten like a window into or look into. And I learned how much I actually love that field and that subject. I've also gotten to talk to so many wonderful people, and just like learn about different careers by our career exploration classes, or just like the volunteers that come and really want to help teach and like give us whatever experience they can. It's been such a great opportunity. And now since I'm looking to transfer from high school to college, their mentoring system has also just done a lot for me, taking me through the steps of writing up a transcript, applying for different programs, through looking at colleges, or making sure I have all of the credits I need to graduate high school. And every step of the way, my mentor, who was Allison, has just helped guide me and made this such an easier process than me and my mom trying to sit down and figure all of this out, since I've been the only person in my family who was homeschooled. But I've also got not even just like the educational side through PLC, the social side was something that I really wanted and needed for high school to have a good experience. And I definitely got that. I've made so many good friends, people who've moved on, I still talk to daily, and people who are still in the program currently with me. I've made some people I don't want to lose like throughout college or in my lifetime, because they're so nice and welcoming. And I've met a lot of new people, even if I don't talk to them now, who just stopped in for a day and we got to chat and get that like experience. And it's just been great overall.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Gabby. That's really good. So, so as you heard, Jillian and Gabby are current members. And now we have 2 alumni. So Constantine, if you want to go next.
Sure. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn off. Right now I just see me, and that's not good. That'll distract me. 1 second. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I'm Constantine. I'm an alumni of PLC. I think it's almost been 6 years, no, 5 years, something like that, 6 or 5 years that since I've been at PLC. So time flies. So my story is a little bit of like, it kind of started out with me always being somebody who doesn't like structure, and always having kind of a contentious relationship with the traditional school system. I always kind of was getting into fights with my teacher about like questioning why we were doing busy work and these weird homework assignments, and I always had something to say about it. And it was never like me trying to cause trouble. It was always just like genuinely asking why we were doing certain things, and the teachers just not being able to answer the question. And so my parents kind of saw that in me, and also kind of saw me taking a more creative path and realizing that the traditional school system would not be able to support something like that. And I am very creative, and I just was being blocked by this kind of oppressive structure that kind of puts these kids in these boxes. And I just was not doing well in that kind of situation. And so my mom, through a friend, heard about PLC. And so we just started looking into it. And admittedly, it took some convincing of my father, because he's a very structured German man, straight from Germany. And he doesn't, he is very much into education and like structure and all these things. And so I think we went to a couple of these panels exactly like this one. And then my dad eventually came around, and I started at PLC, and pretty much immediately, you know, there's this kind of phase where you, as somebody who gets this abundance of freedom, you kind of don't know exactly what to do with your time. But then usually after like the first couple of months, you just kind of figure it out, and then it just blossoms from there. And then I just loved having this kind of ability to do whatever I felt was necessary to further my interests, and then also rediscovering a love for learning and wanting to absorb as much information as possible, and basically taking my own life into my hands. And this gave me such a confidence and ability to just kind of take control of what I wanted to do. And pretty much immediately, I sat down with Joel, and he was my mentor at PLC, and he said, "Well, what are your interests?" And from a very young age, I wanted to be a filmmaker. And he's like, "Well, what's stopping you?" And you know, I was like, "Well, that's true." So then from that point on, I basically called myself a filmmaker. Whenever somebody would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "What do you mean grow up? I'm already that. I'm already a filmmaker." So, you know, that kind of idea is such a great thing for I believe for people, for young people, to just have that kind of confidence and support. And now I'm at Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, the sweltering hot Savannah, Georgia. And I'm studying film and television, and I'm focusing in lighting and cinematography, although my passion is directing. And I've been here now for 4 years, so I'm finishing out my degree right now. I just, as I jump onto this call, I just finished my last major class. So I'm just about to head out into the real world, as they say. And that's a little bit about my story.
Thank you, Constantine. That's really awesome and cool. Yeah, I remember the movies. Shot a few of them in our space. Yeah, Dino Productions. I think it still lives. And,
That's right. That's right.
yeah, cool. All right, and our fourth panelist is Cameron. So if you want to get on, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cameron. We're at PLC. I was known as Cammy. When I was about 15 years old, I developed anxiety and depression, and I was already in public school at this time. And it turned into what was categorized as agoraphobia. I was essentially afraid to be in public spaces with people. I could leave my house and go out into nature, but it was challenging for me to go into school. I would have breakdowns before going into school, and I would fight with my mom about getting there. And eventually I left high school because I was losing credit in some of my classes. So we tried online school, which didn't really work. I cheated on a lot of stuff. I didn't get like the grades that I was wanting or looking for. And eventually I was put on medication, which helped me get out of the house, and was really supportive to me being able to move through this world and try to go back to high school. I tried and it still didn't work. Still didn't like it. I still felt the most anxiety when I was there. Outside of that space, I felt completely normal and okay. I could go to like family gatherings again and other public spaces. And eventually my parents found PLC. And my first day there, I remember feeling so excited to finally find people that felt open and accepting and fun. I actually started to enjoy being around other people again. And my parents were just so grateful that I was able to get out of the house and actually wanting to get out of the house too. And at first, for the first 2 months or so of me being there, I sat on the couch and I didn't do anything at all. I watched like cat videos or something and brought a blanket in, and I think Joel called it like my detox period or something, like detoxing from school. And it was really supportive to me. But I also remember that in those moments, especially, it was challenging for my parents to kind of just let go. And it was really supportive to have Joel and Allison and former staff member Paul be there with my parents and remind them of this process that I was going through. And my mom said that it felt like she was jumping off a bridge to take me out of high school, but she was grateful, and it was one of the best decisions that we ever made. And after about those 2 months, I started to feel inspired to do things again. I was around all these people who were excited about learning and excited about the things that they were doing. So I started trying out classes around the community. I also enrolled in 2 community college courses in drawing, and I was doing emotional intelligence courses and philosophy and photography, maybe, too, a lot of different stuff. I was very excited about everything at that point, and very grateful for the community too. Would play card games with people often, and it was just a really great space for me to be in and start to heal that social dynamic. And at the end of my time at PLC, what I decided I was most passionate about was alternative education. So I was also an ambassador for them throughout that time. And that was really rewarding to go to all of these panels like this, and also a bunch of different events with the other learning cooperatives, and get to see how this stuff works in both the PLC setting and other settings, and learn how we could shift things that we were doing, or like teach other people about the things that we were doing too. And then for about a year after I left PLC, I worked for a PLC and BLC as a staff member. And at the end of that year, I was feeling a little bit like there was some part of me that wasn't fully nourished. And I knew that there was something else that I wanted to do. So I quit, but still stayed in connection, obviously, with Joel and Allison and Paul, and feel really grateful that I still get to have those connections that feel really supportive to me moving forward. And so I quit and I did yoga teacher training, and that unlocked a whole bag of just exploration for me in the holistic world, which I feel really grateful for. And eventually went on to work at the Omega Institute, where I learned so many skills and tools. And currently what I do is I have my own business. I sell artwork, I do life coaching, and I support people through integral breath therapy. And I also work with a community that teaches relational skills to leaders and facilitators as well. And all of those things are super rewarding, and I feel really grateful because I would not have gotten to any of these places without PLC. PLC gave me the ability to be able to learn and grow and explore, and have that drive to explore in the world even after I left and didn't take that traditional path of going to college or anything. So I feel super grateful for this community.
Thank you, Cami. So we're going to end up probably calling her Cami, because that's what we did at the time. So thank you, Cami, and really, really nice. Appreciate that. All right, so we'd like to open it up to people. Anybody who would like to ask questions of our panelists. I think we're pretty small. We could probably, if you'd like to ask it directly, feel free. If you'd like to put it in the chat, we could do it that way. Anything in particular people have that they're interested to ask? Well, I can ask you all a question. So, I like to. So a lot of times in your stories, you highlight all the best parts, but I'd also like to know what's the hardest part of self-directing your own education, right? So you're in charge of it. What's the hardest part? So, and feel free, anybody want to go first, and we don't have to go in the same order or anything. It'd be nice to hear from all of you if you have some thoughts. Anybody want to go first?
Perhaps time management. When you first join PLC, they really leave like your options up to you, what classes you want to take and everything. So like learning whether you want a really packed schedule or if you want your schedule to be basically empty was like, it's hard getting that perfect middle sometimes. Or there's a McCaffrey's down the street where you often go and get lunch. So trying to make sure you have enough time to go get lunch, maybe hang out there a little bit, and then make sure you get back for class or a one-on-one can often be a struggle. I remember having to run back a few times.
Yeah. Do you feel like you got better at it because you had the opportunity to make mistakes?
When we were before quarantine and COVID, I do think I got better at learning how much time it really does take to get to McCaffrey's from PLC and back with like food and if you're going with a group. So I do think I got better by the end.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, cool, thank you. All right, so we have a question. I'm a parent of a kid who will be coming next year. Listening to you all is very,
Allison, I have a
it's
question.
very encouraging and helpful. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering if any of the panelists have missed, some of the typical middle school, high school kind of events and milestones, and that you kind of think of as things that come along in life that people generally like, such as sports or a music program, larger kind of resourced art programs and things like that, or like prom, or all these things that are kind of, I don't know if they're always benefits of high school, but how has that felt to essentially, I'm sure, have friends who are participating in all of this, and to choose a different path?
Yeah, thank you, Clancy. Yeah, Constantine's got his hand up, so thank you.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest fears as well, joining PLC. And ultimately, I think just the excitement of being able to just fully, do whatever your mind can basically, whatever you can think of, and do it and pursue those passions. I think that quickly just became, a background thought, because all of a sudden I was like, treated as an actual adult. And I think that was one of the biggest issues that I had with the normal school system, was that I was always talked down to. And now all of a sudden I was being treated as an adult, and I was able to do all the things I wanted to. And then those worries just kind of faded away for me. And also I did a lot of extra, I did a lot of sports just separately from PLC as well. So I had a little bit of like outside stuff as well. So, there's always that. And I know there's a large amount of, homeschool groups and things that you can go to that I think were also really fun and kind of help substitute those things. I know we also used to go ice skating and did some like a lot of like nature walks and all that stuff. Just kind of, it's obviously like not everybody likes that kind of stuff, but it was definitely a little bit of a hump, but as soon as I got comfortable with it, it was a lot of fun, and all that stuff kind of faded away.
Yeah, good. Anybody else have anything to add? Jillian. Thank you, Constantine.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't think I like missed any part of public school. I wasn't part of any clubs or sports. I didn't really have a friend group there, or it wasn't none of the classes. I didn't enjoy really any part of it, so there wasn't much I missed about leaving. But what was a bit of a like difference was I didn't want to be doing something different than like what all my friends were doing. I didn't tell most people I switched schools for a really long time. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to be asked questions about it, because it just felt weird to me. But I mean, I realized like I'm doing what's working for me and learning. Everyone takes different classes. Everyone's gonna end up in different careers and learn what works for them. So yeah.
Thank you, Jillian. That's really helpful. Your bandwidth was not quite great, so your audio was flagging, but I think we got all your words.
Yeah, we did. It was just a little bit behind. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little behind. So thank you. Anybody else want to comment about this? I'm thinking, Gabby, you could say a little about the homeschool prom.
Yeah, for prom at least, while PLC doesn't host one for their members, there are multiple homeschool proms that go on that I know of, and I've gone to quite a few actually. There is one by the beach, I think Point Pleasant, and then the other ones, I forget where in New Jersey, but they're all really fun. You get some friends and you go. I remember making a whole day out of it. Like we would get our hair done, paint our nails, really just have a great time, blast like nostalgic music for one of them. And then once the night comes, all of you and your friends are excited to go. So as for prom, I don't think unless your child doesn't want to go, there's still options for that if they want to experience it.
I could also say I homeschooled my kids, and there are a lot of ways to get some of these things that are conventionally part of school outside of school. So for sports, a lot of the homeschoolers think of different sports, the kinds of sports that, as Constantine said, he played a lot of sports, and there are various team sports that you can do that are more based in the community rather than part of school systems. And in New Jersey, at least, in Pennsylvania, you can ask a school to join their clubs and their sports. In New Jersey, you can ask as well, but it's much more the norm that the schools decline. Although that could change as things come up. So yeah, Gabby, go ahead.
I actually did do gymnastics all throughout middle school. And then I think for freshman year of high school, I was able to join a private school soccer club. So if you ask around, there is definitely opportunities.
Yeah, so that can be nice.
We have a question that's sort of in line with this one from Wendy, who's wondering, is it strange to hang out with friends and family members who are more traditional school minded, and how do you handle that?
I can answer that one.
Cool.
I found that it was actually not strange or challenging at all. It was actually really exciting for me because a lot of these people, it's new to them. And I know that a lot of my friends, especially in traditional school when they were younger, had some sort of judgment around homeschooled kids. And because it wasn't technically homeschooled, I think they were more open to it. And they were like, oh, what's that? Like, I've never heard of that before. And it was really awesome for me to get to tell other people, like, yeah, I get to like hang out with these awesome people and go to these classes that are created off of my interests. And yeah, it seemed like it was almost like helped them open more to the idea of learning from a place of like genuine curiosity versus being structured and forced something.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Anybody else have it? Yeah, Constantine.
Yeah. I think in terms of like peers, a lot of my friends are like, man, I wish I could go to school like that. And they're like, what? You make your own curriculum and you can do the things that you actually want to do and whatever, And so like in that sense, it was a lot of like, wow, that's really cool, or man, I wish I could go there, or even a little bit of jealousy sometimes, but but yeah, I didn't really ever have any like negative. There's definitely, my parents definitely had a lot of other parents going to them and being like, oh, why you guys are reckless and like that kind of thing. But that even those people, they changed their minds as soon as they saw how I was flourishing and like how I was like whatever. They all came back and were like, sorry, we were wrong. Like your kid is definitely better off at that school, or not school, at that learning facility. And yeah, so obviously there's going to be people that just can't get that round thing into the square peg, or however that reference goes. But in our experience, those people, almost all of them, changed their minds eventually and were like, oh, I'm sorry, like this was obviously the right thing. Actually, we wish we had done that with our kids, and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Thank you, Constantine. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to name that my sister, when I was in PLC, she was like, I wish I could have gone to this after graduating college and realizing like, I don't know if I want to do graphic design anymore. And like, I wish I could have explored more.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the things we do at PLC is encourage kids to explore their interests and to try things out and to go check it out. So you might want to be a vet, you know, maybe there's, you could shadow a vet, or, you know, maybe there's an opportunity to work at one, although it is hard to get opportunity to work at vets for various reasons. But, you know, there's ways to be in touch with it and to explore it a little bit more and see if it's something that you want to pursue. Rather than waiting for that exploration to be later. Yeah, cool. Any other, so Joel has his hand up, Joel?
Well, I thought it'd be fun to, you know, 'cause I've worked closely with all these people, so it'd be fun to ask a question. So one of the things, and even today I was talking to a potential new family called, and, you know, one of the big things is always like, you know, I think the dominant idea in sort of the conventional school system is like, well, you know, if we don't make kids do things, if we don't force them, you know, through grades, through credits, through, you know, these carrots and sticks kind of thing, that kids just won't do anything. They just do nothing. And I'd be interested to hear people talk about, like, you know, everything at PLC is offered voluntarily. So like for you all, like why did you do things? You know, if you weren't being forced. I'd be interested to hear that.
Anybody want to go first? So go ahead, Jillian.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it is definitely, I mean, it's obviously different, and it's a little harder to figure out like how to get through what classes you need to versus what things you're just interested in, and what parts of the things you need to get through you're interested in, and all that. But for me, grades were never like motivate. It was purely stress. Like it didn't help me get things done. It was just stressful, which made me not want to do things. So just like having a class, any sort of like assignment that someone wants me to get done, that's enough for me to do it. It doesn't have to be in like a school grade assignment type like thing. And I mean, I feel like once you get into topics you're interested in, of course you're going to get things done better and faster and with more effort than when you're just like handed project after project without any option in what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Jillian. Constantine.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was like coming from somewhere, or coming basically most of my life at that point from a school system where people were telling you to do something. I think that my brain was just waiting for somebody to tell me to do something. And that was a thing where one day I was sitting, I think with Joel, and I was like, hey, what, like, you know, I'm trying to do film stuff. Can I, you know, do you guys have a documentary? And Joel was like, no, but you should totally do it. And I was like, but I've never made one before. And he was like, well, there's only one way to find out, or something like that, you know? And so like, it was just like that little bit of a nudge or whatever, like, well, if you want to do it, or, you know, that kind of thing. And then just like from a more practical standpoint, I think at a certain point I realized that there were certain things that I needed to do to kind of reach my overall goal as a filmmaker or whatever it be. And those things were like taking an English class, because I do a lot of writing in art school, and taking you know, math classes. And so this kind of inspiration of like knowing that if I do these things that I don't like right now, they'll help me reach my goal. That kind of was a motivation to do those things. And as soon as that kind of mindset changed, all of a sudden I actually enjoyed doing math, which I hated before. And I enjoyed, you know, going to class at like a community college with all these, like, you know, I was this like 17-year-old with a bunch of like, early adults sitting there in the back, just like doing my math homework. And it was just kind of like a cool feeling. And all that stuff kind of, it starts to trickle in, and all of a sudden you start feeling, these new inspirational moments that you start wanting to do things. And it just kind of snowballs. I always knew that if I wanted to do something, like I always told my teachers, if I wanted to do homework in my old schools, if I wanted to do homework, I would actually have fun doing it. And that held true for PLC. Whenever it was me wanting to do something, I actually had fun doing it, even though it was a thing that was kind of a tedious task. Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else have thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I just want to
Daniel?
share one more thing, which is just how important I think it was for me to be able to have that time and space of like, no one's telling me to do anything. I can do whatever I want to. And it brought back this like really childish, natural curiosity. Like when you see little kids, they're not just wanting to like sit there and do nothing or watch TV. I mean, sometimes, but there's more of that genuine curiosity of like, ooh, what's this? Like, oh, I could play with this thing. Like, what's happening over here? And that allowed me to now carry that into my adult life, which has served like really important for me, being able to have a job that I actually love now and not just going into some system because of the things that I was taught and continuing to be told what to do by someone else or how I need to do things or live my life, but be able to actually create that life for myself and learn what next steps are going to bring me to that space and learn what it feels like inside of me to actually really love something and be passionate about it.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
I can say something quickly on this too. I think in my case, I came into PLC very curious about all of the classes. So my first year, I think I literally only had my lunch break free for most of the days. My schedule was packed full of everything and anything I could think of. And then in my second year, I was really able to like weed out the classes that I did want to take again and that I liked, mandatory classes like math, which I needed to advance in, and classes that I think I didn't want to take, I wasn't too interested in. So for me, since I didn't come from public school, I had a natural curiosity about all the new classes they provided for me.
Yeah. So Gabby, you used the word mandatory. So why is math mandatory?
Well,
It's not for me, right?
No, it's not. So like you guys never force like math or anything on me, but I think in my mind, like there's a few mandatory classes for me just to like help get into college and stuff like that, like math, English, science. But even if you really didn't want to, there's still other ways. I've seen some of my friends go like in crazy directions, but they're having so much fun doing it.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Gabby.
We have another question here. This is about transitioning from, an untraditional, non-traditional schooling or learning to college, whether it be community college or four-year college later on. How was that transition to grades, tests, deadlines, that sort of thing? So this would probably be for Constantine and Cami.
Yeah, so Constantine, go ahead.
Yeah, I will say that it was a little bit terrifying, not only for me, but also for my parents, because I'm highly dyslexic. So writing has not come easy for me whatsoever. And neither does reading or math for that matter. Those are all things that I've had trouble with. But I was really lucky to have a volunteer come in every day. His name was David Burr, and to this day he's one of my biggest mentors in life. And he basically just sat with me every week and his background is theater and directing and writing for the most part, and he used to teach that at a college, and so he would sit with me and kind of teach me how to write scripts, which is obviously very useful for me now. And just like that kind of idea of like taking a like English or whatever, and then applying it to something that you're interested in. And those types of things got me slowly to read more and more. So the transition was actually not as bad as I thought it would be. But my parents are definitely very worried about that, and they kept hounding me about like, oh, you need to read more and you need to do this. And obviously I go to an art school, so the reading I do doesn't compare to, let's say, like somebody going to medical school or something like that. But still, like, it's a lot for me. So I would say like the first semester, or we go on a quarter system, so the first quarter, it was a little rough just in terms of like trying to get your bearings within like a time management and like doing your work and studying and all these things that you don't get traditionally, I guess, which were, I think, it was a hurdle, but it was easy to get over, because like those are things that are I believe are like kind of natural for people to be doing. Like we all naturally learn and we kind of find our groove pretty easily. And I think the fact that I went to a school where we kind of were given so much responsibility, I think helped me in the end with finding a way to study and to read and write and all that faster than let's say like people coming from a normal high school, because I knew that I already knew what I needed to do to put myself in a position where I can like manage my time better or whatever, because I was forced to kind of do that by myself. And that kind of independence and structure that you give yourself is way more valuable than somebody, here's a paper, here are the things that you need to do, which kind of creates like autonomous people, and I think for me it was like, well, I can do this on my own now, and it was tough, but I got there. And now it's good, now it's easy. But there's a little bit of a hump, I will say. There's a little bit of a hump.
And I remember you when you took your first community college classes after you'd been at PLC for a little while, and you started with one, I imagine. That's what typically, most kids start with just one, and then you get support. Do you remember which one it was?
I think it was math.
You think math? All right, it was math. Yeah, something that you found particularly hard.
Yeah. Well, that was like kind of along the lines of what I said earlier, where I was like, I realized that, in order for me to get into college, I needed to work on my math.
And that would be a way to do it. Yeah.
And also that like goal that I was talking about, that really encouraged me to like manage my time and like force myself to transition properly and things like that.
I do remember
there's a real motivation behind this whole thing.
Sorry. I remember your mom being quite concerned. One of the classes you took was physical science. Physical science. Yeah, it's called Physical Science Concepts, I think, at Mercer. And I remember her being quite concerned about it. And I believe you got an A-. Am I right about that?
I got a B+. Close.
Oh, I'm so close. I'm so close. All right, B+, which is pretty awesome for somebody who's in art and stuff and doesn't really, science isn't their thing. Necessarily. So
and also, cool. I think that reminds me of another point. I have a way better relationship with my professors than most of the people that I know, because I kind of had this ability to kind of become more mature through PLC, and also interact with adults that treated me as an adult as well. And just that ability to kind of like walk up to a professor and be like, hey, my name is Constantine. I'm really, looking forward to this class, and doing those kinds of things just kind of already give you kind of an edge up. Sorry, my bad. That give you kind of an edge up in the class, and also just like, you know, you present yourself in a certain way. And that's the main thing that I kind of have realized, is that like it gives you this matureness, and people notice that.
Nice, nice, nice. Thank you. Thank you, Constantine. Cami, you want to add anything? Because you took some classes at community college.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, when I was taking the classes at Mercer, it was actually quite challenging. They were art classes, and it was actually quite challenging for me. And it wasn't necessarily just, I had teachers that weren't, I think, in alignment with me fully being able to express my creativity. And I think that was a huge pivoting moment for me, going from, you know, wanting to study artwork to wanting to study alternative education. But what I've learned throughout this is that passion has been the number one drive that brings me to the feeling of accountability for myself and accountability towards other people or other responsibilities that I have. And having that passion inside of me helps me show up for myself, other people, and other jobs and responsibilities. And I think through that, I'm probably doing more work now with these other communities that I'm a part of, actually helping create curriculum for these courses and stuff like that, and being more accountable to them and showing up in these ways that I, you know, never thought that I could or would. But it has come so much more naturally because I started out with the passion, because I started out like, oh, I really believe in these relationship or like relational tools. And I really believe in bringing this to other people. So how do we merge this into like teaching these kind of things and teaching these skills? And I think that's probably the way that it's shown up most for me, of like, oh, wow, I can actually like really do this because I have that passion and because I have all that. But besides those few classes in community college, there hasn't been much schooling that's like traditional. I've like learned that I don't have to take math. I don't have to know all of these things that we're taught, or like think that we need to be able to be successful in this world, be successful to like my level of success of what I think and feel like that is inside of me. And when I did yoga teacher training too, I had a huge challenge with reading as well. Reading was a huge thing for me. And I hadn't read a book in 7 years until it came to the Yoga Sutras, which is a pretty heavy text to try to get through. And I did it because I was passionate about it. And because I was actually like, while I was reading it, it was like this spark of like, wow, this is why people read books. Like this is why I can invest time now into those things to learn more.
Yeah, really, really awesome. Thank you, Cami. Yeah, one comment. I remember that first class you took, that drawing class, and I remember you did fine at first, and you were keeping up with everything, and then there were some struggles, and I think that's part of the key is as you take those first steps into something that's more formal and that requires you to do things, in a certain way and at a certain time, and that are going to get a grade, is that you had support. And there was a point at which it didn't seem like you were going to finish it, but you did. And if anybody who's been in our space, the big gigantic shell that's in the corner, that is your final project. I point to it all the time and just talk about like, yeah. And I feel like you felt pretty good about it, right? In the end, you were like, I did this.
Yeah. In the end, I did feel grateful that I had completed that and gotten through the challenge of having this project that I felt like I couldn't do and that it was too much. And part of me really didn't want to do. And I felt grateful and like I had achieved something. And also like reflecting back, I think I realized that like being told that I had to look at something and draw it exactly that way, when coming from a background that like, I had my art teachers telling me, draw with your eyes closed, like try this, and that kind of background when I was younger, and being able to be in such a creative space, it was challenging for me to then come out of those classes and not feel like judgmental towards my artwork. So it took a little while for me to have some space to that, but ultimately I think that it was really supportive.
Yeah. And I want to say you run a business. I've been to your website. It's pretty awesome. there's an NFT I noticed on one of them. So you are up on things, you know what what's happening in the world. So that's cool. And I got to figure you've got some math that you're doing on a regular basis because you got to keep track of stuff and all that's going well, right?
Yes.
You're doing the math that you need to do.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. Of course, you're paying your taxes. Yeah,
Yep.
of course, right? Of course. And so, perhaps you don't have algebra 1 that's, like something you could turn to and say, oh, I know how to do this algebra 1 stuff. But, if you needed it, I imagine you'd learn it.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge thing with the writing the curriculum and stuff for this new platform and supporting that. It was like writing was never my thing. I never took a class on writing or anything like that. And now just like working with these people who are like asking me the right sort of questions. And one of my mentors on that platform, he asked me like the perfect questions to get to the core of like my why and my intention for the course that we were creating together. And then he was like, all right, now all this information's yours, go crazy. And I like put it in an outline.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
so having those supportive environments, I think, is also something that comes out of PLC, just knowing that feeling more of what it feels like to have really good supportive mentors.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, we're at the hour, so we planned this for 7 to 8 o'clock. And so thank you guys. Thank you so very much. This is just so awesome. Jillian, Gabby, Constantine, and Cami for taking an hour, more than an hour really, because you had to prep, you had to get in here early, do some checking. So thank you for taking the time to be here. And we super appreciate that. So if you guys want to turn your mics on, and we'll give them a little round of applause because we were in person. We just give them a little round of applause. Thank you guys. Yeah, and for everyone, we'll send out a follow-up on this. And I also want to let you know that we have an upcoming event. We're going to be screening the film Self-Taught. And if you enjoyed these stories, Self-Taught is I think 5 stories of young people who were self-taught and in very different fields, a car mechanic, a dog trainer, a chemist, an artist, and there's another one I'm not thinking of. Anyway, it's really awesome. That'll be on June 17th. If you'd like to be on our mailing list, you can, so Joel put in the chat the link to the event. And if you'd like to, if you'd like to get more information about that, we'll be sending out a follow-up with the specifics. Joel put it in the chat as well. Did I miss a question that came along before?
Can I answer that really quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for me, it was really challenging to go. Like, I did not want to. I was having a hissy fit in the car and did not want to go. And as soon as I got there and felt how welcoming the community was, it was like all of my anxiety about it just kind of melted away. And I think that's what's great about PLC is there's already some sort of culture that's built there that's just very welcoming and inviting. And of course, it could take longer for different people, but my being felt that I was safe almost immediately in the first day of being there.
Yeah. I think Jillian, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to answer it quick too, if I could. Yeah, I liked PLC immediately, but it was really hard to get into classes and stuff. I started really small. I didn't drum anything at first. I just sat in. I was called on for a question once and just left the whole meeting. But once I got to know everyone and just like, I got way more comfortable with it.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. Super appreciate everybody being on. And if you have any questions, be in touch with us. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.